Hello to my earth signs Capricorn, Taurus and Virgo. Welcome to the Capricorn full moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising sign listed below. Hello Capricorn rising, welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Capricorn, happening on July the 3rd at 9:40 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So that will be Monday night. That'll happen after the weekend that was, and I reckon it'll be kind of nice to nestle up with this full moon after everything that goes down over the weekend. There's a bit of like frenetic kind of lucid dreaming happening over the weekend. There might be some real surges of emotional intensity and surges of reconnection and of love, and kind of a lot of emotions might sort of bubble up to the surface over this weekend, and that's good. It's high time. I think that Cancer season brings with it that cardinal water, emotional initiation. So everything that we may have put to the side or pressed down, sort of tried to stifle as far as our emotions go and how we've been feeling over this last bit of time, are going to come to the surface. They're going to be revealed. They're going to be dredged up. I think with Pluto's influence in Capricorn now, in that final degree, 29, I think it'll be moving back to 28 soon enough. But that feeling of things being brought to the surface, things being revealed, things finally being looked at, is running through the group's experiences at the moment. A full moon in the first house is a great moment of self-reflection. It's a great evening to chalk up your wins and losses, to think about your commitment and contribution to life on planet Earth, and to give yourself a bit of relief if you've been down on yourself and self-critical. And also, a great sort of moment of possibility too. We get to move on from this moment, Capricorn. We get to feel it, release it, and move through. Now, a moon in Capricorn is always going to be a little bit difficult. If we think about Cancer, the sign that sits opposite you on the zodiac, that's where the moon is most at home, most useful, most able to access its power. A Cancer moon has a lot of connotations around nurturing and caregiving and parental values. And so in opposition to where it's most at home in Capricorn, there's sort of an austerity maybe that can sometimes occur with a Capricorn moon. And there's feelings of kind of limits to emotional investment. And it's not to say that Capricorn doesn't feel, in fact, it's sort of quite the opposite, but there is an instability with matters of the emotional nervous system for Capricorn. Capricorns are much more staunch, and they much prefer to be grounded in reality. So for something so mystical and so emotional and so watery to be playing out in the sign, it can feel uncomfortable for some folks. But I like this full moon because it's in some lovely supportive relationships with some other planets, and also the tarot that's speaking to me in this reading is really fruitful. There's a lot of bounty here. Globally, we can see that Pluto's influence in Capricorn is really reminding the culture of what hierarchical power structures have to go in order for us to move forward. There's a lot of dissent. There's a lot of intrigue that's bubbling away right now. There's a lot of this sort of shape, and folks at the top are in some kind of peril, in some sort of holding room. Their power's in jeopardy. It's one way to look at it. On a very personal level, Capricorn rising, this is your sense of self. This is your soul's operating room, or your soul's like control board. So what is this moon saying to you? What is it bringing to you? What is it illuminating? If the sun's at 11 degrees in Cancer, the tarot card for that is the Three of Cups, which is a beautiful image of reconciliation and of coming together with your gang, with your squad, and celebrating. There's a great feeling of glasses raised and a toast, and hanging out with folks that get you, that really know you for who you are, foibles and all, and love you for it, and love to be around you, and love your contribution to the group dynamic. Cancer for you is your 7th house, which is the house of relationships. So I like this gentle urgency from the sun in Cancer, highlighting your 7th house, highlighting the way that you relate to folks, the way that you show up in relationships. And this card speaks to celebrating that fact. On direct opposition, the moon in its full bright glow, reflecting all of the light from the sun, is the Three of Pentacles. Similar kind of connotation. This is probably a little bit more up your street though, Capricorn. This is about collaboration and about working together and really witnessing the different strengths of the group. There's a model, an artist, and there's also a lecturer or a teacher. So everybody here has a part to play in the creation process. It's a great collaboration. So I think that this moon is sort of maybe gently asking you, have you been going it a bit solo lately? Have you been a lone wolf, lone ranger? And is there lessons or is there help and support in your 7th house that you can rely on at this time? Do you need a little bit of a pep talk, maybe, about your contribution, about your worth, about your stick in the game? Who can you talk to? Who can you find out? Who can you spend time with maybe over this weekend leading up to this moon on Monday? And, you know, have a couple of glasses of rosé, have a chat. Reach out. Cancer season is vulnerable, and here in the southern hemisphere it is winter time, so there is definitely this feeling of introspection and going inward and staying indoors, and there's more darkness than there is lightness, you know. And so we do kind of ruminate when it's time to get cozy. If we spend too much time criticizing ourselves in that rumination, then we can feel really detached. We can feel really separate from the group. But the Three of Cups, the Three of Pentacles, both speak of a group dynamic. And so it's almost like an encouragement at this full moon to reach out and to seek out the folks that love you for who you are, not what you do as well. This is something that really gets stuck in the Capricorn brain, is without contributing or working or producing, then there's not really much to me. I'm not really worth very much. I'm not really worth it. That, unfortunately, Capricorn, is your cross to bear. It's not true. And probably you can look to your 7th house in Cancer. You can look to the folks that really do love you and care about you just as you are, in your tracky dacks, with your hair in a bun, eating twisties, you know, not contributing. This Pluto energy in Capricorn is affecting all of us. And as I said before, we can look out and we can see the different power structures that are really, really, really in crisis mode right now. And when we relate that to ourselves, if we're sort of halfway up that mountain, as I said in the last reading, we can kind of feel that all of our work towards a certain goal or towards the objective, it might feel like it's for nothing at this time because the scaffolding, the structure is falling beneath our feet. I want to look at Taurus now, though, because Jupiter is there in Taurus at 9 degrees, and so it's not an exact trine, but it's near enough. It's quite close. In fact, the moon would have trined Jupiter just before this full lunation. And so I bring that up because Taurus is where you express yourself, where you find pleasure and where you have a bit of fun. The 5th is kind of like being like a child, being like a kid, and being unfettered by self-consciousness, you know, before the time where you were told to pull your head in, or told to stop showing off, or told that your ideas are frivolous or not worthwhile, not useful. You know, I love hanging out with kids. I probably have more in common with them. There's no expectation. You know, you can just play, muck around, imagine. This is all good stuff, good grist for the mill in the 5th house. And Jupiter is the planet that brings emphasis, that expands like with a magnifying glass, that says, yeah, more of this, more of this. So you can see the 5th house is to do with you, but it's less to do with your responsible work ethic, your contribution to society, all of that kind of thing. It's more to do with how you see the world. And your friends love that perspective, Capricorn. They enjoy to hear about it. You know, in some ways it sort of helps them, and you're very helpful, and that's sort of that's your modus operandi, is to be of good use. But it's not solely from how hard you work. The culture that we live in right now, that's the bottom line. You know, break your back, work hard until you die. I'm just pulling one more tarot card for the bridge that we can I need to find a way through to connect the 7th house, your relationships with your sense of self. And I got the High Priestess, and I'm very, very happy for that. She lives in every single one of us, Capricorn, including you. There's a deeper knowing that you have access to, and there's a lot of questions that we can ask the High Priestess, but she really leaves it up to us to figure out the answers. She knows that only through experience and trial and error and gallivanting down this pathway or that pathway are we going to find the answers that we're looking for. I think that at this full moon in Capricorn in your 1st house, that sort of pretty emotional event. I don't know about you, Capricorn. I get pretty, I tear up. I get pretty head up at a full moon. It does move my body in ways that I'm learning, not mastered it yet, but I'm learning to kind of go with. So I feel that there's something that the High Priestess knows that you know that you can probably divulge to some of your mates around this time or in the weeks to follow. Take this full moon in your 1st house as a reprieve from the critical mind, the critical brain, the part of you that says that you're lazy, that you're not working hard enough, or that whatever you're working on and striving towards is actually pretty useless in the grand scheme of things. I'd set all of that down and I'd engage in relationship. I'd engage with my friends, my lovers, my VIPs, the people that I care about the most, that have, an effect over my life. I'd reach out to them just as you are. If you're feeling a bit vulnerable, maybe let that slip. Maybe you can say that. What I'm rapidly learning in this life is the more I don't talk about it, the harder it gets to talk about it. And the further distance there is between myself and the other, the trickier it gets to loosen my tongue. I also know that the feeling of relief, of being honest and being vulnerable with folks that you care about, there's nothing like it. Nothing feels like that. Nothing feels as freeing. That's what we can learn from Cancer. We can learn that, like you, cardinal energy is an initiator. They set things off. You, Capricorn, that's grounded practical reality. That's hard work, absolutely. Cancer is our emotions, our body, our feelings. So take their lead, take the help. You know, if this life is a collaboration, which I reckon it is, take the help, take the offer. And maybe it looks less like that and more like a bit of a celebration. Celebrate yourself for all that you are, especially the shortcomings. Okay, that's your reading, Capricorn. I hope it was useful. I love you very much. Thanks for being here with me. You can send me some tip money at buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby. I can read your birth chart or your tarot cards at umaruby.com. You can go there and book yourself an appointment via Zoom. And if you're still here with me, send me a little goat in the comments. That'd be awesome. These little emojis are really helping get the word out. I really appreciate your interest and your investment in my time. It's meant the world to me. And as a Capricorn sun who does keep their nose firmly planted on the grindstone, I feel really proud that I can articulate my emotions through my work. So thanks for being here with me. You take care, Capricorn. I love you heaps. Bye. Hello, Taurus rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Capricorn, happening on July the 3rd at 9:40 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So it's a Monday night moon after a pretty full-on weekend with a lot of opportunity to connect and to feel joy and love and feel kind of back in your body and seen and heard. And it's a moon that is lighting up your ninth house, which is where we expand our mind and talk about things like spirituality and philosophy, and where we sort of take a journey to find that information. It's the house of our great seeker, where we move to learn and to grow and to expand. And what I kind of feel at this one is that it's in a really lovely relationship with you as well, Taurus. The planet Jupiter is in Taurus at the moment and will have just come off an exact trine with the moon on its way to becoming full. And so, again, this expansive quality that Jupiter brings with a magnifying glass, a highlight, an optimistic highlight, is happening in your first house of the self. So that's sort of shooting up to the ninth in this idea of the great philosopher. So what I'm kind of feeling for you at this one, Taurus, is that because the tarot card is really lovely too. So the moon's at 11 degrees in Capricorn, and that's the 3 of Pentacles, which is about collaboration. It's about working together, sort of putting all of our strengths in the pot, and you're good at this, you're good at this, you're good at this. Let's sort of synergize and work together to make something really beautiful happen. I like this on the road for you, Taurus. It feels really nice that, you can sort of a lot of moving parts, but it feels like a beautiful flow that's going to happen or is about to happen. And I think that Jupiter in your first house is kind of patting you on the back a little bit and being like, yeah, you've been really patient, Taurus. You've been really awesome. And what you have to contribute to this trifecta, to this collaboration, is an essential element, equally as much as the rest. But don't discount your involvement. Don't discount what you bring to this experience. Now, the other tarot card that I wanted to bring out is one for Cancer. So if the moon is at 11 degrees in Capricorn, then the sun is directly opposite at 11 degrees in Cancer. And the tarot card for that is the Three of Cups, which is a beautiful celebration. It's almost like a reunion, like coming together and remembering the beauty and like the emotion of it all. Capricorn and a moon in Capricorn can sometimes be a bit austere. It can be a bit harsh because the moon's much more at home in Cancer, water, emotion, the body, it speaks to that beautiful rhythm. Opposite in Capricorn, it can feel a bit cold. It can feel out of its depth. It can almost, the rumblings and the emotional pull of a full moon in Capricorn can sort of throw people off a little bit too, especially if they've got a job to do. But Cancer for you is your third house, and I've said this before, but one of the Hellenistic definitions of the third house is the house of the goddess. So it's sort of like your local village and the way that you communicate with language, rather than sort of something so public and professional. It's sort of private. But I kind of like this dynamic because they both talk about collaboration. They both talk about coming together, about working together. One's in a really sort of professional, artistic, or, like what's the right word I'm trying to look for? Like there's a craft to the Three of Pentacles. There's something about making something together. And the Three of Cups is like an emotional connection. It's like sort of like coming together with old friends that you've not seen for a long time, or coming together with people that you really admire and on a level that makes you feel warm and cared for and nurtured and loved, and kind of the relationships that you provide that sense of love and care as well. For a Taurus rising, Cancer is the third house. So your house of the goddess does talk about all of that lovely emotional initiation. You're the one that sort of folks come and get on the phone with you if they're going through a difficult time. So it's almost as if, I guess, one of the messages here for this full moon is to bring some of that with you. The ninth can speak to like moving around and traveling and working on something that is very visible, very public, and like there's a rivet across. It's kind of like the third is sort of like, your home village, and the ninth is sort of like the I had just got all these images of like, like a little one, or a teenager, a young person going off to university or going off traveling the world for the first time by themselves, or like not being near the home base because they want to, grow and develop their craft. But there's like a little hanky being waved in the third house of the goddess is what I'm feeling. And who you are at home, Taurus, in private, is the truest part of you. That's not to say that you're bullshitting, like your public face is sort of, it's not to say that that's not really important. And absolutely, it's a facet of you, for sure. Your most public, front-facing vibe. In sort of professional context, I think in the ninth house as well, it's sort of like academic. It's sort of like, perhaps you're working at a certain level in your whatever it is that you're publishing or producing or making or presenting. There's a certain level of expertise that you've reached. The gentle Cancerian, watery parts of you I'm interested to see how that they can inform this ninth house at this time around. Because the moon is out of its depth, the moon's much better in Cancer, much better close by with a cup of tea. You're being asked to put on the war paint and get out there again. And I think it's going to be different this time around, because I think that you can bring some of this emotional literacy with you. You know, big warm hug is what I'm sort of feeling now. And yeah, I like this. It's kind of like reunion, coming back together, or coming together for the first time after a long time. I'm going to pull a bridge for this one, just one card, just to see how we can connect that sort of polarity. Duality is awesome. We all have, there are many different philosophies about duality, about opposing sides, but I think there's maybe a difference between polarity and duality, You can integrate the many sides and facets and shades of ourselves. We don't have to always present all of them, it's professional boundaries are really important. But maybe it's just as simply as sort of like allowing yourself a bit of just let in how this moves you. Let's get sorry, that's a bit muddy. Let's get a card so I can refine this. I got the Wheel of Fortune. I like the fixed energy in this card. It's Taurus and Scorpio and Leo and Aquarius. Fixed signs are the ones that go the distance, that maintain the weather, batten down the hatches. And yeah, I think that there's something it kind of feels like you've got like a second chance. Yeah. And that's not to say a second chance, so don't fuck it up. It's nothing like that, but it's sort of like, I didn't expect that this was going to happen again. This feeds me. This is like, I'm so looking forward to this, and I'm going to look at it and take in my circumstance, take in this sort of opportunity to collaborate. I'm going to approach it in a different way, perhaps that I hadn't had the clarity to approach it with before. I've done some really great work with my emotional self. I've really come into better friendship with my body, the way that I feel, rather than the way that I think or I project or I act. It's how I feel. I can trust my intuition a little more than maybe I used to. Sometimes I used to, put things aside because it was inappropriate or unprofessional, or, oh no, I've got to give them the benefit of the doubt. But now I'm kind of much more at home with how I feel, and I'm not gonna let you down. I don't take this for granted. And if it's a journey, if it's like if you're preparing to put something forward, to present something, you're not going to take it for granted. And I just feel the cogs of this Wheel of Fortune turning. It sometimes can be a interesting card to look at because it sort of has a sort of fatalistic quality about it. Maybe it's sort of like, the Wheel of Fortune turns, will you be granted good fortune or bad fortune? It's like, I think with Jupiter in your first house, Jupiter is the planet of good fortune. And that's going to play out if you like hang on to what you've learned about yourself. If you can approach this new opportunity, this new adventure with the softness and the kindness and the gentility that you've needed to learn over this last period of history, then it's going to look different. It's going to feel different. Sometimes when I'm working on something, I get really single focused. And sometimes when I used to anyway, I'm kind of in a similar, kind of a little bit I'm moving towards something that I haven't done for a very long time. And I've gone through the gamut of emotions. I've been really excited. I've been really dissociated. I've been really nervous. I've been really angry. I've been really worried. All of these different things. What I'm reminding myself and remembering is that it's going to be different this time. Sort of look back, and there's many different, opportunities that present themselves in life, many different wheels of fortune. And in hindsight, we can look back and go, I didn't really make the most of that, or I wasn't even there, I wasn't even present, I didn't even feel it. The blessings that I was being offered, provided with, I didn't appreciate them the way that I should have. That could be something that might be coming up for you, Taurus, but it's not happening now. You're grateful. You're really grateful for it. And I probably really maybe urge you to, I don't know, when people sort of journal about it, I get a bit, because I'm scatterbrained. I've got 20 different diaries that have scrawlings half filled here, there and the other. You're a Taurus though, so you might have it all organized, and you might love the pen and to write things down. But I think it's just sort of like when we collect, the glory box of our lives, when we sort of, stack it all up. We never regret the mementos, do we? So even if it's just sort of collecting postcards or stamps, or what have I done recently? Coasters. I was at a bar with some great friends a while back, and I was just so grateful for it, because it doesn't happen very often. My social life's different to the way it used to be, but I was really enjoying myself. So I swiped the coasters to remember that moment. I think that's the message for this reading, Taurus. It feels this sort of illumination of the ninth house, release, let go, present, put forward. If it's been a long time coming, the best way that you're going to go through with it is to remember all of the beautiful emotional work that you've done and that you continue to do, and that gratitude for where you are and what you're putting forward. That's a nice one. That's your reading for the full moon in Capricorn, Taurus. Thanks very much for being here with me. If you still are, throw me a goat in the comments, won't you? These little emojis are really doing the trick. They're really helping to get the work out. I really appreciate that. I can read your birth chart or your tarot cards at umaruby.com. You can book yourself a place there. You can throw some tip money in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. And I'll be with you in 2 weeks, and we'll talk about the new moon in Cancer. So we're going to zone back into the village, and we're going to think about your house of the goddess and what you might like that to look like as we move forward, as the wheel of fortune turns. So enjoy this full moon. The weekend preceding is going to be all manner of things might happen, so enjoy that too. But I'll speak to you then. Take care, Taurus. Bye. Hello, Virgo rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Capricorn, happening on Monday, the 3rd of July at 9:40 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So it's a big full moon after the weekend that was. I think I'll be publishing these hopefully in time enough in preparation for that weekend, but there's got to be some light bulb moments coming up for us. We're muddling through Cancer season, and already it's brought up a whole bunch of emotional intensity and like weight, resonance, feeling. It's nice when you can kind of catch yourself a little bit head up or a little bit worked up. And what I do to regulate these days is to have a little check of the configurations in the stratosphere, and to really kind of like read and meditate and think about the significations of each of the different signs and how they show up in my life, and give myself a bit of a break if I'm feeling like I'm tearing up all the time, or if I'm feeling like, things are too much, or things are getting really, intense. So I'm going to talk about the moon and the signs and everything and that kind of thing, but I want to pull some tarot. I think I'm going to switch up my technique, because there's no use in doing this stuff if you get bogged down with it being a sort of chore and a grind and a task that is not pleasurable. There's a duality with that, isn't there? There's a friction with those two things. And Capricorn, the sign, is all about nose to the grindstone, diligent, hard work, showing up, fronting up, making something out of nothing, continuing up that mountaintop. And the 5th house, which is where Capricorn lays for you, is about self-expression and creativity and artistry and fun and pleasure, and our relationship with kids and make-believe. So those two don't feel like they kind of fit together, do they? But that is the way the die is cast. If you're a Virgo rising, that's what we've got to work with. So I want to kind of loosen up the kind of formality a little bit. I'm going to look at these cards here. And I got 3 queens and a 5. So I got the Queen of Pentacles, the Queen of Swords, the Queen of Wands, and the 5 of Swords. So we can walk away from something restrictive at this full moon. I want the shackles to kind of feel that they're loosening their grip over you at the moment, Virgo. I want for your work ethic to be something that is admirable and that you're proud of, and that makes you feel useful and responsible and diligent. I also want your messiness to F things up a little bit, to sort of not be an expert, to get it wrong, but to commit to the joy of the act, to sort of get stuck into it if you can. Our mind can do really crazy things, and it can lock us into a mode of being or a routine. And that can feel really secure and stable for some people, particularly the earth signs. But it can also feel like a trap. It can feel like you just want to bust out of something and you want to shake it up. You want to change things around. The tarot cards for the sun and the moon are really interesting too. So the sun's in Cancer, which is emotional initiation, cardinal water. It's all about feeling things and committing to emotions and to other people and to caring for them and sensing if they're not okay and providing for them. It can be a little bit argumentative too, as Capricorn can be, which is cardinal earth, which is about diligence and hard work and all of that kind of thing. So there's a push and a pull between the rules and having a bit of fun. And the cards that are showing up, so the moon is at 11 degrees of Capricorn, that's the 3 of Pentacles. The sun is at 11 degrees of Cancer, which is the 3 of Cups. So this is where we're sitting right now. We're sort of working on something, or we're willing to work on something. We want to start a project or a new chapter in our life, or maybe we want to start a family. 5th house, sort of self-expression, doing this my way rather than the other way. But the sun in Cancer is like, you're allowed to be an amateur. You're allowed to mess things up. You're allowed to be feeling a bit scared about this too, Virgo. You don't know it all. None of us know it all. There's bravery in sort of being a bit vulnerable when you're approaching something, uncharted waters, when you're approaching something that you've never done before. And the Three of Cups is a great reminder of the value of friendship and the value of being around people, of hanging out with people that like get you, all of you, not just the good bits, not just the cool bits or the responsible bits or the practical bits. They get all of you. They get your vulnerability. They get your sense of humor. They understand it. So Cancer for you is your 11th house, which is your sense of a community, sense of good fortune and friendship and human beings themselves, There's been a resistance maybe against that, I think. There has been. It's kind of, there's a lot of language about, not trusting human beings and scourge on the earth and all of that kind of stuff. And we witness people being awful to each other and the volume of hate speech and fear rising all around us, and sort of think, oh God, what kind of a world is this to, bring people into, or I'm just going to exercise my Virgo right and just be a little bit of a hermit and just hide away from it all, forget it, lock the door. But this moon is sort of like urging you to like express yourself. And you can do that in a Capricorn way if you wish. You can do that in, a sort of sense of like crafts personship. You can be meticulous and detail oriented about it and perfecting about that. Sure. But express yourself, invite yourself back to the room, back to the joy, to the good fortune. I'm going to talk about these queens. And so, with the Five of Swords, we're setting down this sparring match of the mind. Mercury is the planet that has a lot to say to your sign, Virgo. You can always follow Mercury to see what's being emphasized. Mercury and the Sun just made a cazimi, which means like an exact conjunction in Cancer a few days before this lunation. So another highlight into your sense of community. Maybe there's like things in your mind ticking over, cogs going, oh, okay, these are my people, or this is what I respond to. This is how I feel a bit of mirth and joy in these kinds of groups. When I roll with these sorts of thinkers, this gels with me. These three queens are gorge to have, and I'm going to check the chart actually to see where they all are. So this is just my theory, but I sometimes think that the Queen of Pentacles can be Ceres, the asteroid. I think that Pallas Athena could be the Queen of Swords here, and I do think that Vesta could be the Queen of Wands. So there's folks here that are sort of in their element. They're in their sort of sense of authority. They can claim a kind of sense of like respect with what they do and what they're invested in. Disparate elements, different modes of being. Queen of Pentacles is earth, is practical. Ceres was the goddess of agriculture and working with the land, respecting its resources and regenerating resources. Pallas Athena was a wildly independent thinker and great problem solver. And Vesta, Queen of Wands, was a magic maker, someone who could really, really work with the power of fire and create beautiful things out of that. So I wonder, even if, check your chart to see where your asteroids are, because that will sort of maybe go to further highlight how you work with these sorts of energies, how you put those hats on, and how you, create under those guises, because we're all, these three queens are in us as well. But looking at this chart and looking at the sky at this moon, the only one missing is Juno, that's where we love. If you're in partnership right now, yeah, isn't it funny when you sort of think, okay, there's one missing. Who can we talk about? We can actually probably talk about Juno, because Juno has formed a trine with Saturn in Pisces, which is your 7th house of love, relationships, or VIPs. Saturn does bring with it a boundary and some restriction there. But Juno's willing to give over. Juno's willing to love, willing to create a partnership, to tend to the needs, emotional and otherwise, of the person that she loves. Juno's in Cancer. So there's a trine, supportive aspect between your sense of like the greater group, friendship, good fortune, and your private life. Maybe we can allow Cancer season to take off our armor a little bit. I don't know if you know Cancer or have Cancer placements in your chart, but you know that the sort of emotional ignition or instigation is more difficult for some people. And perhaps that's a hat that you can wear and you can be the one to start the conversation. Not that you have to sort of solve it, but perhaps there's going to be things at this full moon that come up around security and around emotional care, and perhaps you can open the door to start some of those conversations, and perhaps you can receive a little bit of that love and tenderness as well. That would be really nice. Hopefully it can come from your 11th house, your mates. I love the 3 of Cups, it's the 3 sisters, as it were, it's the power of 3. A good friend of mine once said, if you've got like 2 friends that know you, that really get you, then you're doing just fine. It's sort of social butterflying in different hats and different guises, putting on different outfits, different personas to be around certain groups of people. And that can happen a lot in the professional world too, when we're out in the open and working. And, there's great need for boundaries in those spaces. But when it comes to your mates, your community, your friends, you can be yourself. You can be a dag. You can get it wrong. None of us really know what we're doing. The older we get, the more we realize that we really don't know what we're doing. And that can be a bit scary if you're about to step into a new phase of life or put on a new hat. These asteroids or these queens can represent different stages of our development too. The Queen of Pentacles is the parent. There's something really strongly nurturing, parental about the Queen of Pentacles. There's something practical, and there's a guiding hand that occurs with the Queen of Pentacles that provides support and stability for things to flourish and things to grow. And if you've had a checkered relationship with this kind of energy in your life, if perhaps there was limitations to that for you, and you're about to do it yourself, it can feel like I want to break the cycle, I think we all sort of go through life willing and wanting to break this cycle, The pain that we carry from times gone by has an effect on us now, and we don't want that to put that on anybody else. If we're responsible for other people's development too, we don't want them to carry our weight, our burdens. That's the good thing about getting older though, because there's a certain leveling out point where you can witness your caregivers and you can say, well, I'm your age now, and I remember when you were my age back then, and it sort of levels it out a bit, because I still don't know what I'm bloody doing, and that must mean that you probably didn't really, or you knew as much as I do if we're going to go on age. But the commitment to talking about it and being a bit open, a bit emotional about it, sharing how we're feeling is what Cancer wants to do. And the configuration of family changes as the generations roll by as well. It's sort of antiquated, that sort of 2 straight parents, 2.5 kids, that kind of environment. Breadwinner, homemaker. That's all rapidly becoming untenable for a lot of people. That doesn't mean everyone should stop having kids. That just means that the new dynamic needs to be developed, the new places that you can look for support. You don't have to just look for support in your partner, or just look for support be the only one supporting your kids. There can be multiple different influences on the development of someone younger than you. The Queen of Fire is a really nice one. This is sort of like, it can be described as like the crone phase of our development. When our childbearing years are done and we kind of move into that. I had a great reading today and we kind of renamed it. It's the strega moment, and this can happen before, during and after you have kids too. Vesta's never far away if you need her. The keeper of the sacred flame, the keeper of the magic. Right now Vesta's in Gemini at 4 degrees. So yeah, there's something it's not so aspected, but check your birth chart. Check to see where your Vesta is, because that could be a highlight for you to get some of that groove back as well. I do feel that sort of like there is and maybe it's just laborious because Capricorn is so laborious and is so like rigid. We can get stuck in Capricorn. Pluto is in Capricorn again at 29 degrees. So it's sort of, continuing to topple down that rigidity. We can look out, we can witness it, we see the powers that be, the higher powers, the authority figures are all on tender hooks at the moment again, thanks to Pluto. So maybe we can take that energy and bring that back into us too, like loosen your grip on your self-expression. You can make bad art, I was going to say you can make a bad family. You probably shouldn't, and you won't, but like there's no perfect outcome. And it doesn't stop once you've sort of set everything up. It doesn't, maybe for some folks it does. What I'm learning is that nothing stays still. Dynamics roll and change. It's the commitment that is something that some of us from a certain generation long for, because we came from a space that was, there was, that vow was broken or that commitment was over, But in retrospect, that's sort of not we're still here. It's not so much of a failure. It's the beauty of being human. It's the beauty of being like messy. There's a big mess in the 5th house for some people, maybe less for you, Virgo, because of Capricorn, but it could be a bit messier. It could be a bit funner, I think these girlfriends, proverbial sisters, I think they might be nice to talk to around this full moon, really like relax into the idea that Cancer is bringing up some emotional intensity, some worry, some excitement and some love, but there's 2 sides to every coin too. Sometimes start to fear the things that we hope for. And there can be periods in life when we shut those hopes down because the fear of loss or the fear of sadness is too much. And at those times, it's great to get together with the girls, give them a ring, have a chat. If you're worried, have a chat. If you're excited, have a chat. This full moon in Capricorn, I should say, the sun's in Cancer, but it kind of feels like a sort of Cancerian kind of moon too, because we know that the moon rules Cancer, and in the opposite sign is a bit vulnerable, but the sun's in Cancer, so it's kind of like a little kid in a swimming pool with floaties on, and the sun in Cancer is like, it's all right, darling, I've got you. Don't worry about it. Give it a go. That's the reading, Virgo. I hope that was helpful. Thanks very much for being here. Throw me a goat if things were, if bells were ringing for you, these emoji comments are really helpful to get my work out. I really appreciate that. I can read your birth chart at umaruby.com. You can send me some tip money at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. And I'll speak to you in 2 weeks for some more Cancer chats, because we'll be having the new moon in Cancer at the end of the season. So we'll get to hope and wish and pray and dream about what we might like to see in our 11th house, in our friendship circles, if that needs some work. So we'll get to do that then. I'll speak to you soon, Virgo. Much love to you. Happy full moon. Bye.